We have some pretty substantial breaking news from the NHL. There are reports indicating they've reached a 7-year agreement for ESPN to come on board as one of their media partners starting next year. We'll get into those details coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have some pretty substantial news. Of course, we know that the US TV deal for the NHL with NBC is expiring after this season, and the NHL has been working away on getting things sorted for its next TV deal, which is also expected to be a major revenue source for the league. Of course, coming out of the pandemic is going to be an absolutely huge negotiation for them, and will certainly set them up to rebound and have more success here moving forward. So, of course, NBC Sportsnet is being shut down, that we do know. So if NBC does retain any NHL rights, they will be using other platforms to put those games on the air, including their Peacock streaming service. But ESPN had been long rumored. I've seen reports from some sources for quite some time indicating they were expected to get back into the mix here. And obviously a 7-year deal is an absolutely huge agreement for the NHL and ESPN. Of course, that also includes some streaming rights for Disney. There were no financial terms of the deal so far revealed. The NHL has yet to confirm this as well, but it's coming from an extremely reliable source, Chris Johnston of Sportsnet, who's one of the best out there. His information is always incredibly reliable, so I have no doubt that this is actually validated information on multiple fronts on his part before releasing this to the public here. But obviously, the NHL on NBC has been a thing for a long time, pretty much since the NHL lockout after the 04-05 season. At that point, leading into the lockout, the ESPN deal was pretty important to the NHL, but once the lockout hit, it seems like the interest in the sport in the US, especially as a whole, at least, certainly took a dive. Certainly went down, and ESPN had no interest in retaining the NHL rights there. So obviously, it's a business partner they haven't had a relationship with in well over 15, 16 years. So it'd be nice to see ESPN, who certainly is one of the leaders of sports coverage in the United States, get back into the national picture here for the NHL. And even though there was no financial terms reported by Johnston here in his report, I did see other reports indicating, and I guess we'll have to wait to confirm if they're accurate, that it could be worth about double what NBC paid on its most recent deal, which was $200 million. Now, of course, keep in mind, this is only half of the actual national TV package for the US TV deal. ESPN will not have exclusive rights like we saw NBC have here. Obviously, that's only 50%. Now, part of this deal, like I said, on top of streaming through Disney, they also get the coverage of 4 Stanley Cup finals over that contract period. So obviously that's 8 seasons total, and they're going to have 50% of the Stanley Cup finals broadcast on ESPN. So the other partners that end up coming to terms with the NHL will obviously host the other 4, and I think there's some people saying that this might have caught NBC a little bit off guard. I know I've seen some reports from the NBC executives, I think it was their CEO, the head of the NBC Sports, saying that they want to be cautious here with this hockey deal, if there's going to be one. They want to make sure it made good sense. They are certainly more concerned about keeping the NFL, which is, I think, fair to say in the United States is bigger than the NHL by obviously we all know that. Hockey's huge in Canada here, where I am, but of course in the States there's a lot more competition, and the NFL is an absolutely huge juggernaut that's tough to compete with. So that's certainly their bigger concern, and they were certainly hoping to retain at least part of the US package for the NHL as well. But there is some reports as well indicating that Fox Sports are in the mix, and they could kind of swoop in and maybe take the other part of this from NBC. It's difficult to say. I mean, right now, most insiders are saying they feel that the NHL and NBC will strike a deal to be the other media partner for the other 50%, but it's not a guarantee. There's still negotiations to take place, and the Fox is not completely out of the question. So obviously, like I said, when you're coming out of a pandemic and all the lost revenue we've seen from the NHL, they're just starting to get fans back in attendance in small quantities. And, many U.S. markets, we're still a ways away from having them all. There's none yet at the Canadian teams. Hopefully by next season, we'll have regular full buildings. And hopefully by the playoffs, we'll have a larger percentage of teams having fans. I'm not sure if that's going to happen in Canada, but still, they need to really do what they can here to generate as much extra revenue. Of course, they've got the Seattle expansion coming in as well, which is going to be huge. And I personally can't help but wonder, and even though it wouldn't have been on the horizon or really planned before, if they might even consider another quick expansion of one or two teams, one in the East, one in the West, if they can make the numbers work to certainly get some extra revenue. I mean, I don't think that's a forgiven thing that's going to happen, but I can't help but wonder if it's something that they would consider to generate extra revenue. But be interesting to see if NBC holds the rest of these media rights or if it goes to Fox. Like I know here in Canada, Sportsnet's got the national contract. TSN has regional coverage. Kind of wish they had a different setup, to be honest, because I do like both networks. They have their pros and the cons, but obviously a lot of the regional coverage gets blacked out. I mean, where I live, I get a lot of games for like the Habs or the Senators, but if I want to watch a Leaf home game or the Western teams when they're at home, those games get blacked out unless Montreal or Ottawa are playing them. Then, of course, they'll be broadcast on multiple formats. But it's frustrating with blackouts, and you have to pretty much are forced to get the NHL center ice package, which is certainly, reasonably pricey. I mean, you do get lots for your bang for your buck, I guess, but still, it's a situation where a lot of fans want to get as much as they can without paying anything additional to what they're already paying for their cable package or streaming services. So it certainly would be interesting to see how that contract works out. I know Rogers, which owns Sportsnet, hasn't done the greatest financially speaking from that package that they've paid so much money for with the NHL to have the Canadian national rights. So I'll be curious to see how that goes when that contract comes up for renewal down the road as well. So let me know your thoughts on ESPN getting back on board with hockey. What kind of coverage do you think we're going to receive here? Obviously, they're going to have to put a whole crew back in place to cover the sport. I mean, ESPN as a whole, I think, does a pretty good job. So we'll have to see here. Hopefully, they get things right and put together the right coverage to get this game growing more in the U.S. And there's still lots of room for this sport to grow and catch up to its bigger siblings like the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA, etc. So we'll see how things work out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.